Hi, welcome to episode 9 of the Inspiration Station podcast, brought to you by the Chang Institute for Entrepreneurship at SFU. This week, we meet one of Canada's top innovation leaders and champion of the entrepreneurial mindset, who has blazed trails for innovators and changemakers alike. Are you ready to be inspired? Let's go! You guys, we've arrived at episode 9 of the Inspiration Station. I am pumped for this episode. My name is Carson Keller, and I am your host. You guys, we have such a phenomenal guest today. Let me get into the episode right here, right now. Are you ready? Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's get started. In the realm of innovation, there are many who champion entrepreneurship and the entrepreneurial mindset at SFU. However, a certain book lover has sown the seeds of growth at the Chang Institute. This week, we are excited to introduce SFU's Director of Entrepreneurship and Academic and Executive Director of the Chang Institute for Entrepreneurship. She has played a pivotal role in fostering the entrepreneurial mindset here at Simon Fraser University. She lives by the philosophy that when one wins, we all win. Her vision and dedication have helped build Canada's most comprehensive and interdisciplinary continuum of entrepreneurial support, spanning from K-12 engagement to early-stage incubation. Her impact extends far beyond the university walls. Recognized as one of Canada's top innovation leaders, she has made significant contributions to shaping national agendas on inclusive innovation, digital transformation, and data-driven initiatives. Her research, published in noted technology management journals, focuses on stimulating university-based entrepreneurship, interdisciplinary innovation, and commercialization. Her entrepreneurial journey is a testament to her passion and dedication. She has co-founded Lungfish Dive Systems, a technology-based startup, and has been honored with numerous accolades. Beyond her other remarkable achievements, she actively serves on the board of Power Play Young Entrepreneurs and is the National Academic Lead for Invention to Innovation, a suite of programs helping university innovators across Canada to create impact and unleash the transformative power of innovation. I'm thrilled to introduce Dr. Sarah Lubik as our featured guest on the Inspiration Station podcast. Her groundbreaking insights and inspirational stories are sure to inspire your entrepreneurial spirit. So, without further ado...
Oh my gosh, no
I
pressure.
know, right? Passengers of the Innovation Express, may I welcome Sarah to the podcast. Welcome.
Thank you, Carson.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am wonderful, thank you. Thank you so much. It's such a beautiful day out. What a great day to be having a conversation.
Absolutely. Well, this is a highlight of my week already.
You just touched my heart. You just touched my heart. We're going to dive into some great questions today. So I introduced you as this lover of entrepreneurship. You've created so much change in the world. And I'm just curious just to bring our listeners into sort of Sarah's world.
Okay.
When did the entrepreneurial mindset sort of spark within you? And when did entrepreneurship take hold of your life?
Okay. So once upon a time, I was a BD student before BD was actually called BD. And we didn't have entrepreneurship classes, but we had the very first year of JDC or Jeu de Commerce entrepreneurship competition. I was in the entrepreneurship part. It's a business competition, lots of teams. Someone was I think Terry Beach, who is like serial entrepreneur, now an MP for Burning Man North Seymour, one of our big champions in innovation, came and got me. And he's like, you think fast on your feet, you should be in entrepreneurship. And I was like, students who do stuff like this seem to be cool. I will try that. And I absolutely loved it. So I got into that, and there wasn't any classes in it, but I ended up doing another case competition, and then ended up doing research as a co-op job for a professor who was looking into how do you take things like fuel cells and clean tech and successfully get them into the market.
Right.
And I had never known that this was a job people could have. Right. So I ended up going from doing one semester of that to we were doing this research project between SFU, MIT, and Cambridge in the UK. And I asked her, if I impress you, can I go see some of our partners? And she's like, cool, where do you want to go? And I'm like, I would like to go to England, please. And so she arranged for an international co-op in England, working in Cambridge, and interviewing these companies that sounded like they were taking science fiction and turning it into value for the world. And I got so excited about it and I loved it. And I was supposed to be there for 2 months. And then my PhD or the person who, spoiler alert, would become my supervisor was like, hey, you clearly love this. Would you like to do a degree in it? And I'm like, I would in fact like that. So I applied to the school and ended up, what was supposed to be a 2-year co-op term, ended up being 2 degrees. And
Oh my God.
then I worked on projects on entrepreneurship across Europe. So doing it for like real life and helping companies. And then I ended up meeting, as a business coach, meeting people who would become my co-founders because they had a really awesome technology. It wasn't my technology. And they're like, you would be very useful as a business person on this. And I was like, this is cool technology. And this was not my idea, but let's do something together. And so this was sort of a ripple effect of sort of falling into the world, taking some chances. And, what was supposed to be a 2-month co-op ended up like a 7-year stint in Europe with startups and projects and degrees. So it just kind of rolled from there.
Wow. You are leaving nothing off the table right now. It made me kind of think about what you need within you to sort of criteriarize. Is that a word?
Let's make it one.
Yeah, to criteriarize yourself as an entrepreneur. If there's like a certain few main points that you would have to offer or suggest, what can I do, or who am I as an entrepreneur, and how do I identify as one?
Absolutely. Well, I think you're queuing me up very nicely for the entrepreneurial mindset because we did do some research on that because we are at a university and we do research on cool stuff on what it is to be an entrepreneur. But the high level, what it takes to be an entrepreneur has nothing to do with starting ventures. You know that. I've seen the podcast. So, but what there is resilience, personal resilience, and self-efficacy, and opportunity recognition and creation, being able to see that something needs to be done. And then something that we're like, it's this cool nebulous concept that's sort of somewhere between future focus and imagination, where you can imagine the world as better and different and you can figure out how to get there. And I guess if we take that back to what I just said about my journey and you dig down, there's also sort of curiosity about what can happen next? What is cool? How can I help?
Certainly.
So the how can I help mentality, I think, is something that I really love about entrepreneurs. And also, what are you bringing to the table, right? And sometimes it's just the attitude and the eagerness and the being willing to get your hands dirty.
Yeah.
I've found the biggest thing is usually just, this is confusing. Nobody knows what to do. And being the person to be like, I don't either, but let's start.
There's a lot of people out there who we've even interviewed on the podcast who are within the entrepreneurship ecosystem at SFU, or just even outside of it. When they found themselves sort of in the place that they're in right now, they never really considered themselves to be entrepreneurs.
Yep.
And I think you're touching on this one piece about interdisciplinary entrepreneurship and how they come from all across totally different areas, different faculties, different walks of life even. Why do you think interdisciplinary entrepreneurship is so important?
Nobody's going to save the world alone. That's all there is to it. Right? We need scientists because they need to come up with the materials that are going to make fuel cells so efficient that we adopt them readily and we don't have to use fossil fuels anymore. We need engineers to be making those products. We need designers to turn it into something someone would actually use. We need people to sustainably create the models that get those things out into use, which can be nonprofits and can I'm going to keep coming back to, it doesn't have to be old school business.
Yeah.
But it can be nonprofits, it can be charities. You need people who can look at systems. And this is one of the reasons why we are so lucky to have so many arts and social science students in the certificate is if you're someone who understands systems, then you can understand how to make them better and to change them. And when you should go outside of them, or when you can make systems change, or where you can make a difference, right? So we need everybody at the table if we're going to make real change. And the other reason that I'm interested in it and making sure that it's for everybody is that resilience and that self-efficacy, because that makes you a happier person and a more useful person, someone who feels like they can take control of their destiny, which is something that I think we're all feeling, especially now, that we'd like to have some control over our destiny and we'd like to have the power to make life better for others. And so we need everybody for that.
Yeah. And And taking full control of your journey is something that I think I've seen, not that I think, I have seen like all over the place now. People are having these insanely creative ideas, and they want to know what they can do to make their dreams become a reality. And you made mention that there's lots of art students who are in the certificate. It comes from all over the place.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think this is now a great time for us to sort of... So you know exactly what time it is.
Yes, I
It's
do.
time for the Mindset Matters Minute.
Love it.
Given that you are sort of the mother of entrepreneurship at SFU...
This is like Mother of Dragons. Okay. I'll take it.
We've thrown a spin on today's Mindset Matters Minute segment. We're actually going to be proposing 2 of the attributes from the entrepreneurial mindset from the Charles Chang Institute for Entrepreneurship. And
Okay.
I want to see how you can sort of find an intersection of the 2. And you're not going to be surprised by these 2 words because you've actually said these words many times already in the
Okay.
episode so far. So, what are your thoughts on empathy and resilience?
Okay. One of the most important things about empathy and being able to get together, whether it's across disciplines, whether it's across communities, whether it's understanding what others bring to the table, is really core to entrepreneurship, because we live in a world and we live in an education system, a lot of us, that silos people. It's like hundreds of years of silos. And then we unleash students into the world with this idea after working with people who think like you for 4 years and be like, why can't they get along in teams? Whatever was the problem there? And so, the very first time we did Business 238, the intro to entrepreneurship or innovation entrepreneurship, we asked the students, because it was just everybody in a big room, right? What is the hardest part of this class? And they said, working with other students. And I said, what is the best part of this class? Working with other students. Like, this is a challenge. We don't think the same, but we're humans. Which ones of us think the same, right? So empathy is important for learning to understand others. It's important for also learning how you're going to help. Because I started with that how do I help mentality, right? And rather than imagining like how might I create a solution for someone who I don't understand, what we need so much more of is people to understand the context and the people who are either having the problem or part of the system trying to solve the problem, and understanding what do they need, where they're finding pain points, where can you remove pain. So that's where I think empathy comes in. And resilience, a couple of years ago, right when we started the pandemic, I was trying to write newsletters for the students, and it was just, we weren't getting to see students anymore. We were worried about them. The world seemed like a pretty dark place. And I went and talked to a professor in gerontology called Teddy Costco, and he looked at resilience. And we are lucky to have a interdisciplinary council of faculty and staff here that get together regularly to figure out how we can help and how we can help each other. And Teddy was telling me about how you build resilience as a person. Because a lot of people, similar to how people talk about how entrepreneurship is something you're born with or not, like it is something you're born with, it is not something you're not born with. All of those pieces I talked about are all things we have are born with.
And we all have in common with each other as well.
Exactly. A little bit of empathy going on there.
Indeed.
And resilience is something that you can build. Some people are more resilient by nature, but it's also something you can build, right? And so it's something you build by making sure you are a holistic person and that you are investing in yourself as, your mental health, your social health, your job, whatever else you do, and make sure you have, and this sounds very businessy, like a good portfolio, a diverse portfolio of those things, right? And so making sure you also have that diverse portfolio of interests, etc. That resilience makes you a stronger person. Like it makes stronger networks, which make us happier as people. It makes you stronger personally. For me to do it during COVID, I took up powerlifting, so it made me stronger literally. So, you build you work on building these things. And what they have in common is they're things that you build up. You can practice, you can get better. So you can build your empathy by putting yourself into situations where you get to learn about people who don't think like you. Like, have you had Christina on from Employ to Empower?
No, we haven't.
You would love her.
We had Vivian from Employ to Empower though.
Oh, that's awesome. Can't wait to watch that.
Yeah.
So I won't give you the deep story of them, but one of the beautiful things they have is there so many programs treat people who are struggling and in the downtown east side as, well, you don't have any skills, so let's give you like basic skills. And so many people are there because they've encountered problems in their lives or trauma or what have you. But they had lives and skills before that. The very first person she helped was a chef, right?
Oh.
And so that person doesn't need to be retrained as a entry-level job. That person has skills at something very significant.
Yeah.
So if that's empathy and that's that insight, and interestingly enough, by embracing that her as a whole person, that helped her build her resilience back, right? So they absolutely go hand in hand as things that you can work on.
And you even just made mention of something that I mentioned at the very beginning, is that when one wins, we all win.
Absolutely.
And giving back to that community of aspiring entrepreneurs and people who, might not have been in the practice of something that they're passionate for, but bringing it back, that helps foster a community of not even just success, but love and growth around the world.
Absolutely.
And you've contributed to that. And one thing that has resulted from your efforts and all of those within the Chang Institute and entrepreneurship across SFU as a whole is, now let me get this right.
Yes.
We have now been named at SFU by the Deshpande Symposium the award for the Entrepreneurship University
Of the year.
of the year.
Yes. Go 2023.
Oh my gosh.
Yes,
How
it
does
was
it
very
feel to
exciting.
receive such an amazing award?
I wanted this to happen for a really long time. And when we received that email, it was so hard when it's like, don't tell anyone. I was like, yeah, it was absolutely incredible. And that whole community of innovators they're such an incredible community, and they get together to help each other. One wins, everyone wins. Yeah. And so receiving an award like that from a group like that just meant the entire world. It was fabulous. And to be, the award was for the entrepreneurship ecosystem that we built here. And it was also, the process of applying for the award, we asked for some letters of support, and to hear back from student companies what the support they got here through that journey, through that continuum meant to them. And from our partners to say, this is meaningful stuff, and it's creating that entrepreneurial mindset, so super early all the way through to world-class clean tech companies.
Yeah.
And you're like, this is amazing. It's lovely to look back and see everything. And I appreciate you also saying that it's everybody's award, because it really is. I know you called me mother of entrepreneurship, but which is awesome because it made me feel like Khaleesi. But this is definitely an ecosystem approach. This is not one person's system. And this has actually been happening long before I got here, right? It's just capitalizing on everything that building momentum on stuff that people have been trying to do here, which is when it's been very exciting to see. And it's been very cool to see how many people come and get involved from places that you'd be like, I'm sorry, we have what? And people working on...
I know, right?
Exactly.
And I feel like you brought up the momentum of entrepreneurship and just the spirit of the entrepreneurial mindset. In the last, even just 2 months that I have been with the Chang Institute, I've seen such an increase in the spirit of being an entrepreneur just by emphasizing the entrepreneurial mindset.
Yeah.
Because these are all qualities and attributes that everybody has within them. And it's just finding that place. How can we unleash those,
Yeah.
And just that pillar and that milestone of receiving this award for the Entrepreneurship University of the year, might I add, it just goes to show how important it is to emphasize these attributes within everybody, because they are within everyone, and it's not just a business student or an entrepreneur. It's every individual, and they all bring these different qualities in different ways, and that's how we foster that community.
Absolutely. Not everyone wants to start their own business, or they might not want to start it right away. We have a lot of students who they might study entrepreneurship and then go get a job in a company or an organization.
Oh, for
and
sure.
then years later, they'll have started understanding that industry and go, I could do something better, or I've hit a wall in my career for what I can do, or what have you. And then they use entrepreneurship as a way to create a new path for themselves. Or you'll see others that they'll take that entrepreneurial spirit and they become someone who becomes employee two of a whole bunch of different startups, right? So they're not the founder, but they're like the operations, the growing person, what have you. Or you'll have someone who goes into government, but then really understands how change can be made, right? So there's no place we don't need that. And in fact, can you imagine being an entrepreneur in a place surrounded by everyone else not entrepreneurial? You would feel like you're beating your head against the wall constantly. So we need to have that shared perspective and that shared ability to create vision to work toward, because otherwise it'd be really frustrating to be an entrepreneur.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And it just sounds like if you're just in that spiral, in that loop, it just feels and sounds exhausting when it really doesn't have to be.
Yes.
Yeah.
And well, there's actually one of our professor of practice, Andrew Harries, so he's a professor of practice in entrepreneurship, and he's a serial entrepreneur, amazing guy. And he recently sent me an article by Steve Blank, who did the Lean Startup, which most people have seen if they've done entrepreneurship, about innovation heroes and how this is actually a bad thing. Because you don't want just one person killing themselves for change. You want organizations that are set up to do it. You want companies that are set up to do it. You want ideally a government set up to do it. But also realizing, just as a caveat, that of course we don't want to move fast and break things in a lot of systems, because like health, education, etc. No one's going to be happy if you break that, right? We need other things standing when we make change.
Oh, for sure.
But it was an interesting thing to think about, that idea that we don't want anyone to have to be that single driver of change, because we want everyone driving toward it together, because that way we don't burn out those change makers.
You're also touching on these people coming into sort of the entrepreneurship space, like they're creative and they're identifying with some of the entrepreneurial mindset attributes. Do you have any sort of advice for people who are curious to enter that stage of their life and take action on their dreams?
So, well, you already used the word curiosity. Figure out what gets you going, and also don't put too much pressure on yourself. Like we live in a system where we need to put so much pressure. We do put so much pressure on, like, figure out what you're going to do. People start asking you very early, what are you going to do when you grow up, etc. And I'm like, I'm still not 100% sure what I want to do when I grow up. But it's like, that's a really unfair question. Like, it's an easier place to say, where do you want to make change? Where do your interests lie, right? And to think about how you might pursue those. I think if someone gave me some advice early on, I would have wished they would say, like, explore more. And I did do a lot of it, and some of the stuff I did accidentally. So I've been very fortunate, right? And also hang out with people who don't think like you. Like we have had a professor visiting here who was into strategy and creativity.
Okay.
And one of the rules was hang out with weirdos. And what he meant was hang out with people who don't think like you.
Yeah.
Right? Don't get yourself into a bubble where you're hearing an echo chamber. Get yourself into a place where you're constantly hearing new ideas and get used to that. And work on building it. Building your imagination, building that self-efficacy, building your curiosity. Because it's way more fun as a life. Like,
oh, yeah.
But it also means, like, you're never bored if you're curious. And you're also, I think it's Doug Fast, who's one of our mentors and teachers, who said the opposite of fear is curiosity. It's also very hard to be scared of things when you're curious about them. So it helps you in so many different ways. So I would say, exercise that. And when you start building this, you end up with that mindset that's like, with curiosity comes cool new things, and I don't need to be scared of them, which also starts helping you build your own, I can do something about this feeling.
Yeah.
So that would be a quite long-winded advice for someone pursuing this. Is, what are you curious about? What are you passionate about? Find out about that.
I think our listeners are going to love hearing that, because there's a lot of people who are in that place of, like, oh, I'm curious about something, but maybe I am a little bit nervous to enter it, and sort of recognizing that fear and curiosity are two different things. And maybe you might be a little bit scared, but if you are curious and continue doing your research and learning a little bit more about what you're interested in, that will unlock this door for you. And when you walk through it, and you find that there is support, and that when one wins, we all win, and all of these things that we've been talking about, that is your catalyst for success, I find.
It is. And the other one, you inspired me with something you just said there, because there's also a get out of your comfort zone part. But one of our, in the that Invention Innovation national program I was telling you about, one of our national leads, Carlos Bazan at Memorial University, said,
Okay.
he's like, it's not about getting outside of your comfort zone. It's about expanding your comfort zone.
Right.
And I really like that because that sounds a lot more comforting than,
It does.
go someplace you're not comfortable,
Yeah.
right? Expand the places where you are comfortable. And for that, the other piece of advice I would probably give would be go and look at some things that are outside the things you know you're good at. I think unfortunately, how universities often work is we're afraid to do anything we may not be good at because GPA or what have you. But that puts so much undue pressure on yourself, right? So find ways, like this is why we're really lucky. There's a whole bunch of things you can do outside of school, outside of your classes in entrepreneurship at SFU, because give it a shot. It's not going to hurt your GPA, right? E-co-op's not going to hurt GPA. Actually, the interesting thing is you embrace that curiosity and you will do well in entrepreneurship courses.
Oh, yeah.
So then a lot of people who are like pretty good students, and then they get into entrepreneurship and they're just passionate about something they're building, and all of a sudden they have a really good GPA. And it gets so funny as a teacher because when you're teaching those classes, because it's the students where you're like, you got a really good grade. And they're like, that's nice. But at that point, they're like, what I did was so cool, though.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's the attitude I want you to have. But as a teacher, I kind of want you to be excited about how well you did as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think that you made mention about embracing what you're passionate in and doing well in it. I find that people, when they enter an institution like SFU or anywhere where you're taking courses to get a degree, you're limited by the courses that are offered, first of all, which I think is a problem that we can discuss another time, because there's so much more than just what is offered through the institution. But when you're actually passionate for it, that's when you will excel and you'll find those results of finding a good grade in something. And when you're passionate for, let's say, entrepreneurship as an example, and you're doing well in these courses and you're feeling good about what you're doing, that is a clear sign of you finding what you're made for in life.
Yes, exactly. If you're waking up in the morning and you're super stressed out and you don't want to go do it, this is not a good sign. And that's not saying that all of life is going to be sunshine and roses always, because hard stuff happens, and we have to put ourselves in hard, challenging situations sometimes to make things happen. But if you are tackling challenges that you believe need to be solved, and you're especially looking around the room, lucky enough to be working with really amazing people that you're looking forward to seeing and trying to make that change with, then, that makes your whole life something worth looking forward to.
Yes. Yeah. And you also touched on, there's highs and lows, and you can't just be riding this high all the time, because you're going to come down, but you'll learn from that. And that's what's going to take you even higher. Now, unfortunately, Sarah, we're starting to run out of time. I have one last question for you. What is one piece of advice that you have received that you keep coming back to and that has inspired your journey to this day?
Oh, this is actually a really hard question, because I've had so many people help me along the way and say inspiring things. I'm going to take it back to that resilience question. And I was talking to, I promise this is not me trying to be branding. This is literally what came into my head. It was talking to Charles Chang. And we were talking about mental health. Okay. And he said, don't cancel on yourself. And that was a really good piece of advice, because we often, when we're passionate about something, we can let everything else in our life go. Like, we can decide that I won't go to the gym because I need to work, right? Or I'm not going to be able to see my friends because I'm so tired from work, or what have you. And that is the opposite of building resilience. And so that mindfulness and the scheduling in taking care of yourself, you got to take care of yourself before you can take care of others. There's nothing, it may be short-term noble to be like, I'm just going to take myself down for what I believe in. You're like, you can't get back up again. That's not good. So I think it would be don't cancel on yourself. Make sure that you take care of yourself as a holistic person, not just but your passions holistically. That would be a really good piece of advice I got, and it's one I want to keep passing on.
Wow. In this season of change, I think that is something that I think a lot of people need to hear. I find like where I'm at right now, like I've made this massive pivot sort of in where I'm taking myself in my career. And I think a lot of people are sort of on the same page right now, just based on conversation I've been having out there. When you're learning something new and you're entering this new space, I find it's really easy to knock yourself down because you're not finding those results and that success that you were having at this super high stage of like maybe a career that you just are stepping out of. But I think it's really important to remember that when you are starting something new, there is a ground level and you need to work your way up. And sometimes the elevator isn't working, so you have to take the stairs. But everybody has their own path and it takes time for some. And remembering that not to knock yourself down for being a human, I think is one of the most important things that that can be told to somebody. That's great advice. So thank you so much for sharing that.
You're welcome. And I think the other part of that is also extend that same empathy to others, right? When someone is, especially because we do have, at least how we do education, these sort of narrow fields, when someone is trying to understand another field or trying to build that interdisciplinary empathy at the beginning, it's hard. That person hasn't seen that world before, right? They've been taught to do things differently. So when that we have this program for scientists and technologists, if you spent years becoming the expert in something and then you're being asked to build a whole complementary skill set on top of that, that's asking you to widen the way you think. It's asking you to look at the world through different lenses, and that can be hard.
Oh yeah.
Right? So also being empathetic to yourself and then being empathetic to others when they're trying to enter new worlds is really important. Mm-hmm. But it's so rewarding too.
Before we wrap up, I would really love it if Sarah could ask Carson a question.
Oh, I had a couple. So
putting me on the spot?
Yes.
You don't need
Well,
the notebook for that one.
yeah. I love it. Well, you touched on the important things that you've seen change over this 2 months you've been with the Chang Institute. How has that changed your mindset?
Oh my God. Like, where hasn't my mindset changed? You know?
That's a good answer.
Like I you know what? This actually reminds me of, like the first episode of this podcast that we recorded was between myself and Mako. And Mako was asking me these questions about entrepreneurship, and not even just entrepreneurship, but just growing within yourself and finding new passions and really embracing those. And honestly, I really struggled to answer those questions. And it was really hard for me to identify myself as somebody who is willing to embrace change. Mm-hmm. Because for so long I find that I was trapped, and I didn't really know where I was going to take myself in my life. And I loved what I did. And there's this massive change that I think that I've been preparing myself for, but I don't know what that change is going to be or where it's going to take me. And yeah, I was in a really confusing place. And I think to answer your question and how that's changed for me is learning from all these people on the podcast and from the people who I work with every single day, and just learning these stories and seeing that all of this comes in such different places, and being empathetic within myself and understanding like, hey, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be fast. I can take it at my own pace and stay comfortable within that. That's given me a lot of reassurance and understanding that, hey, I'll find out what I'm passionate for. I'll find out what that's going to be. But it just takes me thinking hard about, these things that I've been working so hard towards. And where I really want to take that is to a place of me landing in satisfaction. I think we did this vision boarding exercise a little while ago with the team. And I put these big ambitious goals of me like wanting to own like a dance studio or wanting to pursue these massive, massive goals. And I'm finally seeing myself in the shoes of somebody who actually does that. I think that's how I would answer that question. There's been a lot of change, and it's hard to pinpoint exactly what that is, but I've opened myself up a lot in just 2 months.
You know what that sounds like to me?
What?
Self-efficacy.
I think so.
It is. Well, if you look at that, I had a dream, but I didn't know how to achieve it. And now you're like, I am the person who can achieve it. And I know what the community can help me, the programs that can help me, etc. Then like, you're on your way.
Yeah.
Right?
Sarah, this has been such a pleasure to have you on the podcast today.
Thank you for everything
learned
you're doing,
so much.
Carson.
Oh, thank you, Sarah.
We love
Thank
having you here.
And it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure being here. Like seriously, I've learned so much just even the last 2-3 months that we've known each other, and I'm so grateful and appreciative of the opportunity and for the trust that you guys have put in me. I'm so grateful, like beyond words, you know. So thank you for that.
We're grateful to you too. Thank you. And thank you for this opportunity, and thank you to you guys too. This was so much fun.
Yeah. So, passengers of the Innovation Express, I thank you for listening to our episode today. And this is episode 9. We've only got one more ahead of us. Episode 10 will be out next week, and we will see you there for the final wrap-up episode. Once again, thank you, adios, and take care.